is Karen Urrutia from Firm Foundation Finances, Lighthouse Realty. Wanted to go ahead and reach out and do a video on errors and omissions. I got off a webinar, and it was really good. An attorney was going over a few things that he's seeing in the market and a couple of shifts. So I wanted to bring these points to you guys and really address them so that we're being careful when we're doing transactions to avoid assuming additional liability. Okay, guys, here we go. So one of the first items he addressed was whenever you have a transaction, and let's say you are looking at the home inspection that was done on the property and you're representing the buyer, and there's maybe 10 items on there that are going to be repaired, whether you have them repaired or not, you want to go ahead and do a form. And let's say, for example, the seller says, I'll give you $2,500, $10,000 to address those issues. Well, this $10,000, you want to have escrow draw up a form that says, the buyer hereby agrees to a $10,000 credit in exchange for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or the repair request, or the items requested on the repair request dated 11/7/2022. Either way, you want to state how much and what it's for. And I know we usually stay away from that because we give a closing cost credit, but they're saying go ahead and do an additional form. Ask escrow to do it. If escrow doesn't want to do it, then you do it yourself. And the reason is because they want you to put this in there. $10,000 credit for the repairs requested X, Y, and Z date. The buyer hereby holds the agent and the seller harmless for those items being requested and agrees that the $10,000 is being accepted in lieu of repairs. And basically this is it, right? So in lieu of repairs, and will not ask for any additional funds now or in the future for these repairs to avoid a lawsuit in the future. Okay, guys? So here you're saying, I'm giving you this money, but you're protecting yourself, the seller, the other agent, even though you're the buyer's agent, okay, from any future issues arising from claims that the buyer might have because of those repairs. Big one. They said that they still have individuals, even though they do this, they have individuals that come back and they sue. But when this form is in place, it really does help to show that the problems were addressed and the issues were brought up. But if there's nothing in writing, sometimes it leads to a gap for a lawsuit. All right, second one here. Another one he came up was with contingencies. We're not really seeing it as much now because we don't have the same seller's market, but they were talking about contingencies where the buyers would come in and say, I'm waiving the appraisal and the loan contingency. So it was the Wild West, and you really had somebody that was working on a loan, and if they removed all contingencies and then they wanted to back out, the seller had access to 100% of their deposit. Well, the issue was that many times the seller would come back, try to take the deposit, and they take them to court and say, hey, I know you want the deposit, but you don't get it all. Or you do get it, but only a portion of it if they're really not entitled to it. So they were saying if that's the case, for the seller to give them extra days for the inspection or whatnot, to just say, hey, I'm giving you some space so that there's not an issue. Okay, so that one's important. Another one they were bringing up was wire fraud. A lot of hacking. They said the biggest issue was because phones. And because we're on the phone, somebody can hack it, get the information, change it around. They talked about a circumstance where they had an individual that the buyer was going to wire funds to escrow, and they asked their agent, hey, I don't know where the wire information is. Can you send it to me? So the agent turned around, looked in their email, grabbed an email that they thought was from escrow, and they sent the wire information over. Fast forward, the escrow never received the $85,000 they wired to escrow. Instead, it turns out that it went outside the US. The buyer never saw that money again. $85,000 wired to some foreign account because the agent took it upon themselves to do the favor of forwarding the information for the wire. Guys, don't do this. Have escrow do it. The attorney was advising that you tell escrow, do not send it to me. I don't want it. I don't even want to look at it. Do not assume additional liability. If a wire needs to be made, have escrow reach out to the client reach out to escrow, and coordinate it so that does not come onto you as a liability. All right. Another one they're talking about is carrybacks, especially because the rates being so high as they are right now. Individuals are asking, hey, can I go ahead and do a carryback? Will the seller carry back some funds? He's saying, be careful if you are an agent and you're arranging these carrybacks. And the reason is because if you are an agent and you're arranging these carrybacks, you are now acting as a lender. And if you are not disclosing that correctly, the rates are incorrect, or there's an issue when it comes to the paperwork on a lending transaction, you just assumed an additional liability, more problems, and you're not getting compensated on it. So what he's saying is, don't do it. Don't do it. Let them talk to escrow. Let them talk to the seller, whatnot, for the terms, so that you don't assume that additional liability for a transaction that you are not a professional on. And that's something they keep coming back to. They talked about tenants and how, because of COVID, a lot of tenants are in properties, are not wanting to move out, and inadvertently the realtors are becoming property management agents. And we're not property management agents. We're not renting. We could lease out a property and it's a one-time transaction. It doesn't mean you're going to be the property manager. Do not become the property manager, because you're not going to get paid on it. And guess what else? You are going to be liable for it. Because if they said, hey, coordinate with XYZ on this repair, or on this, or on whatever, you are inadvertently assuming the responsibility as a property management agent, and you can be sued for it. They had one case where somebody was coordinating a repair. They said they were a translator. Next thing you know, it turned into something from them being a translator, that because they were coordinating the repair, they acted as a property manager. The tenant said that there was some damage done to their property by the contractor, and guess what? It came back on the realtor that was just being a translator. But the court said they weren't, because they coordinated the repair, so they were acting as a property manager. So what the attorney recommends is, if you need somebody to advise them on evictions, on getting a tenant out, or whatever, have them talk to an attorney. Advise them to talk to an eviction company. Do not assume that additional responsibility, because when it comes down to it, they might say, hey, thank you for helping me, but if something goes wrong, they're coming after you. Another thing too, email conversation. If you coordinate with your seller, with your buyer, with the other agent, keep it in email format. Typically, disputes arise within a year to a year and a half after a transaction closing. And we have to keep records for at least 3 years, according to the California Association of Realtors. However, they're seeing that disputes are arising sometimes 5-6 years after a transaction is closed, and people don't remember the transaction, don't remember the client, and of course, they don't remember the details. So put things in writing, put them in email, because you can go back through your email, see what happened, kind of familiarize yourself with what's going on with the transaction. So if somebody says, hey, I had mold in the property you never advised, you can go and look at the property inspection. Was it on there? Was it not? Did you advise them to do something? Did you not? Okay, these are all very important things that you want to keep a record of, and try to avoid text, because in text, we change phones every year, 2 years, 3 years, and guess what? Then if you had it in text format and that phone is gone, so is the conversation, and so is the proof of what actually happened. So try to keep any pertinent information in email format, especially when they don't want a home warranty, especially when they don't want home inspection, because you don't want to assume that liability. So you let them know in email why it's so important for them to have a home warranty, why it's so important for them to have a home inspection, that you yourself are not an inspector and cannot advise them if they don't have an inspection. And if they still choose not to have one, then you have that in writing. So that way it'll protect you if it came up that something big arose and they say that you never advised them to get a home warranty. All right, guys. I hope this was helpful. I'll bring some more tips to you guys, but biggest thing is, be a professional, be there for your client, advise them knowledgeably. But when you are not the professional in a specific matter, if you are not the subject matter professional, refer them. Do not assume any liability for something that you yourself don't want to be liable for or be taken to court for, because unfortunately in these days, in these times, a seller, a buyer will easily say, well, so-and-so told me that so-and-so said, and guess what? The law is always going to be on the consumer side. So hope this helps. Hope this keeps you from maybe, I know we want to do favors. I know we want to help our clients, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure our families don't have something else to worry about. So Karen Urrutia, hope this was helpful. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll be talking soon.